Thank you very much for coming, and we know the boss from several years. He's an old friend of this country. I don't know much about you, but you are most welcome. I am here at your disposal to answer any question. So, which idea do you want me to start with? Is it women in particular? Is it the harassment?
I would say both. Both are interconnected.
Yes. Yes, I have an agenda in front of me. Women's situation in Egypt now and the future challenges. Situation of women in Egypt. Before I proceed in answering this agenda, I would like you to know that we'll give you my two statements that I made in the United Nations during the 57th and 58th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, one during Dr. Morsi's time, and the other one was this March 2014. You can see the difference between the situation of women before and after. The situation of women in Egypt since the 25th of January 2011 and what appeared in the 30th of June 2013, women were very active, very interested in political affairs. They were keen to follow the public issues, not women issues per se. Suddenly they turned it into politicians, even those households, the women at home who do not have work or not party to a union or something like this. Just a housewife, she became very, very interested in the political life of the country. She has a voice in what's going on. And this was demonstrated clearly in two events. In addition to the revolutions, in the referendum on the Constitution in January, and secondly on the election of the president. You could see how women were standing in lines to cast their vote, and even they turned this event into a kind of celebration. From the statistic of the election committee, it is, in all modesty, we can see that women exceeded half of the vote. As exact numbers and figures, the women constitute 49% of the population, and they have 24 million vote in the election. The total voting in those eligible for voting in the election are 54 million. Out of them, 24 are women. So it's a big portion of the voting is
electorate, yes.
Yes. So, as a result of this, many non-traditional people, especially at the level of political decision-making, recognized. They could not fail not to recognize the women's role. We've heard it from the President Adli Mansour and from the new President Sisi. It was so obvious. So this is one of the positive signs that the women, by their participation so heavily in the election, they obliged the decision maker to recognize the role. As a result, we were covered by the Constitution. The Constitution, I had the privilege to be one member of the 50 who drafted this Constitution, and we fought hard to get some rights for women. We succeeded to have Article 11, which referred to the women's status by starting saying women are equal to men in, and then you have 5 areas: in social, political, economic, civil, and cultural rights, in 5 areas. In addition, that women should assume a higher position and judiciary, because as you know, part of the judiciary system in Egypt is still very conservative against women, especially the State Council. We got also 25% of the local election for women. The local election constitute this 25% it means 13,000 posts. 13,000 posts in all the governorate. This is a big responsibility also for the council to give the names and select the women, train them for their responsibility, and so on. Now, for the parliament, the women, according to the election law, they translated what in Article 11 into the following: that women, because we in the Constitution refused to be one section of the, for instance, they have identified farmer, worker, Christian, handicap, and Egyptian living abroad as different groups. We said we are not a group.
Let me do those who are nominated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We said women should not be included among these groups. We are half of the population of the country, and therefore we have to be in a separate article, and this was Article 11. As to the other groups, they were mentioned in Article 243 and 244. And those 2 articles are temporary, not permanent, transitional between the 2 periods. So it could be for one time only. So, in the election law, this was translated into the list of parties. Half of the list should be for women. half of the list should be for women. And we have 4 lists. It means we will have 56 seats. And in addition to half of the 5% that the president of the country should nominate. The 5% of the president constitute around 30 or 28%, 28 seats. So another 14 might be for women or will be for women, and therefore the total is 70. This is in addition to the individual
candidates.
The individual localities that we have 420 seats as independent individual who will run in their own capacity, not belonging to a party, as independent member of the parliament. So women have the right also to run into those 420 if they can succeed in it. And now the National Council for Women is in the process of selecting the women who have either a tribe behind her or a big family, or she has popularity for one reason or another. Up till now, we managed to have around 30 names. It happened in the year 2000 that 4 of these women succeeded in the independent seats by very big majority. And some of them are from the South, which is against the normal understanding that the South will not vote for women, but this is not true. So we hope that the total number of women in this parliament will be around 100. As to your second part of the question, future challenges. For the challenges that will continue to face women in this country is the social culture. This is the culture that we need to change from the education level to the mosque and the church to the information and media, films and soap opera. All of these need to be changed in order not to consolidate the wrong attitude against women. And this, we have been fighting this one, especially during the last 3 years where there was no law and order in the country. And when the Muslim Brotherhood were in charge, they inculcated more and more in the mind of people the wrong interpretation of Islam and the wrong fatwa and wrong saying girls could marry at age 9, or circumcision should come back, or the age of custody of the child should be reduced. These are the only things that they started during Dr. Morsi time that the parliament started with, just to delete all the rights and to change the laws that protect women, whether the child age, the marriage age, or the protection of the child before 18 from work, and the right of women to divorce herself or the custody of the child. Four legislations were about to be abolished by this parliament that lasted for only 5 months, and thanks again that the National Council of Women, together with El Azhar and the Ministry of Justice at the time, we managed to defeat this movement. So they were defeated and the parliament was dissolved, but they came back in the constitution of 2012 to again try to eliminate women's rights. But by why? But by what to do? They never mentioned in 2012 constitution any word referring to women. It referred to motherhood and child, but not the woman as a citizen, as a person who has rights and duties, but one of her characteristics being a mother. But if you are not a mother, then you have no place in this constitution. They did not recognize the commitment of the state toward the International Convention, specifically to withdraw Egypt from Sinai. And child labor was allowed before 18. The human trafficking, they refused to put it on the agenda, on the constitution, although they know that there were challenges in the country on human trafficking, especially marrying young girls to old guys from the Gulf. It is a known case. So this is what happened before and after the Dr. Morsi's period, and the difference between the two constitutions, 2012 and 2013. And the challenges for the future, as I said, is to change the culture, the attitude, the tradition. There are good traditions that we will keep, but there are bad traditions that we should demolish. Okay, number 2, women and the coming parliamentary election. I think I answered this already. The latest development in sexual harassment. Well, the latest development in sexual harassment, we cannot blame the revolution of 25th of January that because of it, and we have started this bad habit of harassment because it existed before. It existed before on the basis of individual cases. But what happened after 25th of January 2011, it became a kind of organized crime. One time, to prevent women from participating in political life or demonstration or being in Tahrir Square, or just to threaten women not to get out of their house. This was the culture of the Muslim Brotherhood, that women has no place in political life or public gathering, and therefore they use this method of gangsters. The latest situation, it was not the first time during the last 3 years, the event that happened in this month in التحرير, and where the president of the country visited the victim. I personally went before the president to see this lady, and it's not harassment. You cannot tell that this is a kind of harassment. It is more than harassment, than rape. It is almost a crime. Somebody intending to kill the victim. Because this lady, when I visited her, her right hand was totally broken into 3 pieces, and 1/3 of her body is burned by boiling water. Tell me, if you are there for sexual aspiration or feeling or whatever, why would you commit this kind of brutality? It's not for sexual pleasure. So you will not be shocked if the punishment will be very severe, because you cannot match it with sexual harassment or raping, or it's almost killing. It's almost intentional killing. So what did we do? Since 2012, the National Council for Women went to the Minister of Interior and told him the feast is around the corner, and the young boys are taking this celebration a moment of harassing the girls. What can you do? And this is where we started a series of action between the National Council and the Minister of Interior. Even when the Minister of Interior, Ahmed Gamal-Din, was removed or changed, and the new Minister Muhammad Ibrahim, I went to see him again. And both of them insisted on adding to the law the word harassment, because in our legislation there was no word harassment, which خليها تحط ورق مناديل عشان الدبانة دي، مناديل عشان الدبانة. So we were instructed by the Prime Minister at the time, Hisham Andil, to prepare a law against violence against women, not only harassment. And this council prepared the law, and we have asked some expert from the European Union to come and double check with us this draft, and then the whole thing stopped because we did not have a parliament. The Ministry of Interior, at the same time, we signed with them a protocol. They have reshaped their Ministry of Interior to have a whole department of human rights and a unit to fight violence against women. And they give instruction to all these police stations everywhere to take this complaint seriously, because, and this is very known, when a girl would go to the police station complaining from harassment, the officer or the soldier would take it lightly, or laugh at her, or tell her okay, forget about it and go home. So now they have different instruction and things are taken seriously.
You speak now of 2011. When
No.
this initiative.
No, this initiative started 2012
Okay, yeah.
and
yeah.
it continued
Yeah.
from 2012 till 2013 up till now.
Yes, because when you came up with it, it was not leading to anything.
No, we started step by step,
Yeah.
but the person who instructed the council to prepare a law was Dr. Hisham Andi
Yeah.
during the
Yeah,
Muslim
yeah.
Brotherhood. And this is the situation. Now things are taken very serious against harassment.
Yeah.
And everybody, whether Ministry of Justice, NGOs, everybody, they want to have a say in this legislation. The legislation is always available for anybody who wants to add, to correct, to amend. This is the situation.
When you mentioned the violence against women, you mentioned the legislation, the violence against women. So what about domestic violence? Do you have a hope for a law for that in the future?
Yeah, that's why the law was not adopted, because it's a long one and it includes violence at home, in the family, at work, in the street, and all kinds of violence. And this lady, Dr. Nagla, have made a research and a survey in the 27 governorate, like 17,000 documents were circulated to ask the people what kind of violence. Is it home and at home? Who? Is it the father? Is it the husband? Is it? And she came out with the analysis that most of the violence is at home. How many? 63% violence at home. And we made a number of conferences in all the governorate, and another conference at the national level. This is the situation for the law, and what is remaining now is she's preparing for the strategy. To prepare a strategy. We used to have in 2009 an outline for the strategy. Now we are inviting 5, 6, 7 ministries to work with us on drafting a strategy. What would the Ministry of Education do, Information do, Religious Affairs do, Ministry of Social Solidarity do, and so on, because everyone, Ministry of Interior and so on and so on. So we will launch this on the 7th of July under the auspices of the Prime Minister and in his presence. He promised if he does not have a request by the President, he will attend this meeting on the 7th of July.